The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are live again on Twitch for the second time as far as our podcasts go. So glad to have you along with us. It is Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt. Great to be back along with you. And we're going to be talking a couple different things this week on our live edition of the Nerdcast Empire. Mike and I are going to be getting ready to go to Animazement for the second year in a row down in Raleigh, North Carolina. We'll be talking about that, giving you a quick preview of that. And then we're going to each give you 5 anime themes that you need to know. And hopefully both Twitch and YouTube will be happy with that and not try to nuke my channel by playing little clips of those songs. We'll see how that ends up going. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It is going. The Twitch streaming experiment continues. We'll see how this one goes today.
It's certainly an experiment, and there are certainly some bumps in the road as we try to set all this technology up. We're still kind of working our way through it, but
infrastructure is a problem.
It is a challenge for sure to try to get all this set up, but we are continuing to work on that. Joining us from Parts Unknown for his first live soiree or foray, I guess, into Twitch streaming a podcast is Chris. Chris, how's it going?
Oh, I'm good now. It's been a couple weeks, but happy to be back. I was so unwell. Matchbox 20 wrote a song about it, and I had a sickness that'd make David Draymond blush. So happy still getting my voice back, but I think I'm well enough to do this, and happy to be doing it live, of all things.
I kind of assume Push was written about your illness. I'm not sure what that had anything to do with it, but yeah, great to have you back, and certainly great to have everybody along with us as we continue to try to find our way through this whole live streaming a podcast situation. And we're going to be talking first about an upcoming event that'll be happening in Raleigh, North Carolina next week. That will be Animazement. And it's the second time Mike and I have gone to Animazement. We went last year, and for those who maybe haven't heard us talk about it on the podcast, it was such a breath of fresh air compared to other anime conventions we've been to. Even some anime conventions that we've liked over the years, we thought they were good conventions until we went to Animazement, and honestly, we're just blown away by the scope of the entire event. Mike, first off, general thoughts about our experience last year and kind of your thoughts looking ahead to next week.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well by saying breath of fresh air. I don't know if this is just a symptom of kind of being in the Midwest and you go to a lot of conventions in and around that area, whether it be Cincinnati, Columbus, Chicago, but you kind of start running into a lot of these events feeling very same-ish. Not Seamus, but same-ish. It feels like a lot of retread guests over and over again, similar programming, and that was really what Animazement did differently. That kind of blew my mind, was the slate of guests they had were so different than anything I'd seen previously, and a lot of heavy emphasis on traditional Japanese culture and music performances, just something that even if you're more of what I would consider to be more of a normie type anime fan, there's going to be something that you're going to take away from that. And looking at the guests this year and some of the panels I've looked at on their schedule, they're bringing it again. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it is really... it's very easy, I think, especially when you've run a convention for so long, that it's very easy to kind of get a format. And honestly, like, I kind of relate to that because some of the stuff we've been doing on this podcast, like, you kind of get a rhythm and you get something set and it's very comfortable and you kind of do it and it's fine. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but this live streaming thing kind of feels like that same thing where it's just something outside of what's comfortable. It's live. We're trying to produce the show on the fly, and it's exciting because of it. And Animazement, when you see them bring in the kind of guests they bring in and run the kind of panels they run, you just wonder, like, why can't everybody do this? Because I mean, Raleigh, North Carolina is a really nice place, but it's not really special. Like, it's not like New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago where you just know it's really easy to get foreign guests in, and you have so many colleges to choose from to bring in, like, professors and things like that. That Raleigh's not a small town, but it's, I would think comparable to Columbus, Cincinnati. Like, there's no reason why we couldn't have these kind of conventions within driving range. Not that this isn't, not that we're not driving it, because we are 8 hours in the car, but it doesn't compute to me why we don't have more of this kind of in this area.
Yeah, I think if I were to guess, it probably has more to do with really the kind of convention that the people who organize it want to put on. It could also be when you think of something like this past OhioCon, where it obviously turned into the dumpster fire it was. A lot of it just kind of seemed like the organizers, the ones who've stuck around, they're just kind of going through the motions now. It doesn't really seem like they have that same passion for it, putting on a good show or just a unique show that maybe they did once upon a time. I think maybe it's just what you're interested in. I think clearly the people who run Animazement, they have a certain love for a lot of the Japanese side of running an anime convention, and I think that is something you don't see as much around here.
I think the other thing to note about Animazement, I think you'll maybe get a little deeper into some of the events coming up, but a lot of the events that OhioCon, MatsuriCon, a lot of the panels they run, those panels still exist at Animazement. The difference is there are so many other panels that, if you're going for one specific thing, you can probably find it, but you're also going to find 8 or 9 other things. In other words, it really is kind of, there's something for everybody, and nobody should leave that weekend feeling like, well, man, I hate that they didn't have this thing. Like, there's a pretty good chance they've got that thing.
Yeah, I was looking again at this prior OhioCon schedule, which may or may not be fair considering the tribulations that went down there as far as getting a convention running at all. And it seems like with them, there are a lot of events that are so far off on a tangent from the central theme of anime and gaming, but those events felt important. They felt kind of like linchpins of certain days, like they were main events. And with Animazement, just scrolling through their schedule, which they have on Guidebook and on their website, there seems to be so much programming that anything that you think, does that really need to be at an anime convention? Is that any way, shape, or form relevant? It doesn't seem to matter because there's so much else there. That's not one of the major events.
Yeah, I think that, again, really it feels like the kind of convention that wants to bring as many people in as possible. And I feel like OhioCon for a few years kind of felt the opposite, where it was like, we're kind of almost driving people away. Like, we don't really want to be as big of a convention. I mean, they even said as much, at least some of the people that were left over after the whole thing, that, we were kind of okay with it being smaller. And that's, I understand not wanting to be Anime Expo. Like, you don't want to have 100,000 people. Like, I totally get that. I would not want to run a convention like that. But at the same time, you should be trying to bring as many people in as you can. And I feel like Animazement's done that really well. It's in a great location. You mentioned a lot of great Japanese guests. I'm always excited to see new guests that you just don't get to see very often. They've got some repeat guests as well. It's good to see Kiki coming back again for the shamisen concerts, which are always entertaining. But anybody specifically or any events that maybe jump off the schedule to you as you were taking a look at it?
Yeah, I did find it was interesting that Toshio Furukawa, Japanese voice actor, played Kai Shiden in Gundam and Piccolo in Dragon Ball, is going to be there. His wife, who's also a voice talent, played Videl and Pan in Dragon Ball. She's going to be there as well. Shino Kakinuma. The Rakugo comedian's coming back. Someta Hayashiya. He was really entertaining last time. You have the Jackaballs, who are a Japanese stage combat group. I don't recall getting to see much of them last year, but I think they were there. So I definitely want to check them out. Just numerous other musical guests that I think are going to be really cool to check out. And, I was kind of running down the schedule really quick just on Friday alone, and just the variance in panel quality maybe is where I want to go with this. I mean, you have an anime history panel, a calligraphy class, you have the Japanese sit-down comedy show, traditional music concert, art of kabuki and bunraku, sake and Japanese culture and anime. Just you kind of feel like there's a certain level of additional culture being provided by the panelists that I'm really interested to see.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a lot of fun. Our plans to do some video stuff down there, maybe even do a live podcast on our Twitch channel now that we're doing that as a thing. So I'll be hauling all this equipment down there as we head down there to try to be able to do this. But I think it's going to be a great event again, and definitely looking forward to what should be a great weekend down at Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's still time if you want to check it out. Animazement coming up next weekend. Get your tickets on their website. Hotels are probably a little hard to come by, but last year we stayed at a hotel that was probably 20 to 30 minutes outside of downtown Raleigh, and it was really nice, and it was really inexpensive, relatively speaking. So, I mean, there's still, and it was it wasn't much before this time last year that we decided to go. So, if you want to go down there, check out their website, animazement.com. Kind of has all the information about it.
I do kind of wonder what it's like for any of the foreign guests that come to this convention, if this is like their first experience of being in America, because I feel like Raleigh, North Carolina is very far from big city American experience.
Yeah, I just think of all the guests that come to like Anime New York City or
Expo.
Anime Expo or any of the conventions in Chicago. Like, that's about as big a city America as you're going to get. And then to come to Raleigh,
just feels kind of small and chill.
Yeah,
honestly.
It's a really cool town. So we'll have more to say about Animazement in a couple of weeks. Like I said, we're going to take our podcast stuff down there, try to do some video content as well. So looking forward to that. You're listening to a live edition of the Nerdcast Empire Anime Thursdays. If you're listening to us on Twitch, you're listening live or on the VOD. If you're listening to us on YouTube, you're listening to our VOD, which hopefully will have all the music included. If you're listening on our podcast networks, we're still happy to have you there. We'll continue to upload to our podcast networks. This is episode 60 of the Nerdcast Empire. You can check out all of our back catalog by searching Nerdcast Empire wherever you get your podcast, or by going to nerdcastempire.com. We have a store. We have a Ko-fi page if anybody would want to donate. So again, the biggest thing, as we always say, if you share our posts, if you give us good reviews on the podcast networks, that is a huge help. And tuning in live to our Discord to allow us to eventually get to affiliate status or whatever the first level of Discord membership is. So that is certainly very much appreciated as well. But if you listen on the podcast networks, you're not going to hear any of the music. That'll be cut out. So you'll have to check us out live or check us out on the VODs. And hopefully the VOD gods are kind to us and leave most of our music in. But we're going to bring Chris back in, and it'll be the three of us in the next segment as we're going to start talking about opening themes again. We did this a month ago. Chris wasn't able to join us for that one, so now he's got a chance with a clean slate to bring his anime themes to the forefront. We're going to, each month probably, we're going to spotlight 5 anime themes that you should check out. We could basically do any kind of a gimmick to this. I am basically kind of choosing by decade for this week's picks. I've also thought you could choose by artist, you could choose by show type. There's so many different ways we can go with this. And Chris, you didn't get a chance to join us the last time we did this, so I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts, because I know you're not maybe as into anime music as we are, but at the same time, without spoiling any of your picks, like you've picked some really good ones. Kind of your thoughts on this whole anime music thing.
Yeah, having missed out on the initial run, I kind of went, and also not being as experienced with a lot of anime music besides what I've watched, I kind of had to just go with kind of a greatest hits of the stuff that I've seen and kind of fallen in love with, both a while ago and recently. So I do have a little bit of a healthy mix in here. But yeah, in the future, I wouldn't mind trying to come up with a gimmick similar to how we do our Music Mondays. I've been getting into some more of these artist backlogs. So, I could see myself doing whole, 5-piece episodes on just one particular. So we'll see how it goes from here, but it's exciting. I'm happy that people are finally going to get to hear clips of what we're listening to.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. Certainly did for our music show, which I believe we're just going to call Music Weekly now, because it's a weekly music show. Let's not,
that works.
Try to go crazy. We'll call it Music Weekly, because that's going to drop on Sundays in most cases. So
let's call it Music Television. It's never been done before.
It certainly isn't done now. That's the problem. But we're going to be talking anime music on this edition, and we're going to try to play clips of the songs we're going to be picking. What we're going to do is each of us in the first segment are going to choose 3 each, and then we'll rotate around. We'll each talk a little bit about it. We'll play a clip. if anybody has anything to add to it, they can do that. Then we'll take a break. It's not really for the Twitch audience or the YouTube audience, but for our podcast audience, we need to throw a break in there. And then we will come back on the other side of the break with the final 2 picks from each of us, and then we will wrap up this edition of Anime Thursdays.
I thought you were going to break into, if you're a Peacock Premium subscriber, you will hear, and then whatever.
See, it's bad because, like, now that this is live, we can really get sidetracked because I don't know if anybody checked out WWE's Twitch channel earlier today and that very creepy video that certainly makes you excited about where that whole thing's going. But
Joe Hendry.
Or Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry. He's had quite the music week. Maybe he'll show up on Music Mondays sometime, or Music Weekly. Like, you never know. So,
or whatever the next name will be.
Whatever it will be. We move it a different day of the week. I don't know. But we're going to start off with
X.
Yes. Nobody's using that. Music X. But let's move on to our first set of anime themes. We're going to let Mike go first with his first 3. So we'll go one at a time. And if I do this right, I'm going to try to pause the podcast recording when I play the music. So we'll let you get into your first choice, talk about that, and we'll play a clip from it in a moment.
Yeah, I did kind of put them in like a countdown order, even though I don't know that's necessary as much as like maybe 2 and 1 are kind of bigger deals. But kind of like the first time around, I wanted to highlight one ending because I feel like openings tend to get love way more than endings do. In case with the show that I picked, that's also true, where the open's kind of pretty well celebrated and not so much the ending. But that being said, from 1996, I am picking the ending theme from the show Vision of Escaflowne. The song is Mystic Eyes by Hiroki Wada.
I love this show. I'm glad you finally got a chance to come around and watch this. Interestingly enough, you and I have both watched different versions of this show because I watched the original Ocean Group dub, you watched the new Funimation dub, but both excellent casts. And a really great show, and this is a really great song.
Yeah, absolutely. Very 90s anime theme, more upbeat than the open for sure. And just beyond that, if you had like an essential 90s anime list, there's no doubt this show would be on it.
Yeah, no question about it. So let's see if I can get this right. Okay, we have paused the podcast recording, so now we're going to listen to a little bit of Hiroki Wada's ending theme to Vision of Escaflowne, Mystic Eyes. That was Hiroki Wada with Mystic Eyes, and able to figure out the routing on this. Any other thoughts on that one, Mike?
Not much, really. I just really like the song, and the open is a big deal, the Maya Sakamoto song, so figured the ending would be a good song to highlight. Of
course, that was Maya Sakamoto's first ever anime song.
Never forget that. Thank you, OhioCon Game Show qualification quiz.
That is one of my favorite endings. I really do like that one. I think it's just a great balance to the opening theme, which is very much fantasy, and you kind of get an idea of what the world looks like in the open, and the end is very much character driven. Like, here are all the characters, here's all the love polygon that is going on in the show.
I'm a big fan of isekai before it became every show.
Yeah.
And I think the 90s is a really good spot for a lot of shows like that.
Yep. Chris, you have any thoughts to add before we move on to Mike's second pick?
I love that kind of sound, and I guess you'll kind of hear that when we get to my list, but just that kind of 80s almost disco vibe that it has, that's right up my alley, and something I've been getting into more as I've been digging into some soundtracks.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good sounds. We got some dogs in the background as well.
You have a guest there with you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm at the Parts Unknown Pound right now, actually.
Welcome to all guests, and welcome to everybody watching live that got a chance to hear not just the song, but a special guest for Chris in his studio in Parts Unknown. Let's move on to your second pick, Mike. Mike, what do you got for us?
Yeah, let's do that. With my when I pick my songs, I try to hit several different decades and themes and whatnot, and I kind of have my classifications by decade, and then also one for Mecha or Gundam show. So Escaflowne technically could have been Mecha. It certainly qualifies, but I think it's more. I see it more as 90s than I do Mecha. As for my number 4 choice, we are jumping back into the world of Gundam. Also from 1996, kind of the forgotten mid-90s Gundam non-Universal Century show. You had G Gundam, you had Gundam Wing, which came over here and were kind of a big deal. This one, it took a while to come over to the States, and not dubbed also. But that being said, my number 4 pick, my second of my 5, is the song Resolution by Romantic Mode from the anime After War Gundam X.
Just a bummer that this show was kind of like buried. It was not really respected. Like you said, it kind of fell in a weird spot as far as the way Gundam was working out, both in Japan and obviously in the United States. As you mentioned, it took a while for it to finally come over, but it's a great show, and this is a really great song.
Yeah, I don't know if there was just a certain amount of Gundam fatigue or something at that point, because obviously you had 2 other shows around that same time frame with G Gundam and Gundam Wing. You know, you had Gundam Wing being, there are these multitude of really cool mobile suits that we can market to people. You had G Gundam, which was like a martial arts show meets Gundam. I kind of feel like somewhere along there, Gundam X just kind of got lost in the shuffle because it wasn't really either of those. That being said, it did have really great music and really cool mobile suits. The Double X, the Versago, and Asteron, really cool if you're into Gundam. But yeah, Romantic Mode does both opens for this show, and I went with the second one, which is really awesome.
Okay, now that I've got the podcast audio muted, it's time to check out the second open from After War Gundam X with Resolution from Romantic Mode. That was Romantic Mode with Resolution from After War Gundam X. Just a really great sounding song. Chris, any quick thoughts on this one before we move to Mike's third pick?
Just everything about that's bombastic, from the backing vocals and the female lead singer. It's just amazing. Gundam is probably one of the best to do it as far as openings. I mean, this is already the second or third one we've mentioned, and I may or may not have one on my list as well.
Spoiler alert, we'll have that coming up in just a few minutes. But Mike's got one more before we pass it on to Chris for his first choice of the week. So, Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, too, it's kind of interesting that you had Gundam Wing that was like all 2 mixed songs, and then this show, they went with Romantic Mode for both opens. Just kind of similar but different, basically.
Yeah, it's like they found an artist and they wanted it to have a sound, and it worked for both shows.
Also, really great endings too. They sound like Chicago songs. They're pretty interesting.
Japanese Chicago.
Yeah. So yeah, moving on to number 3. I wanted to hit something in the 2000s. I'm a big fan of Rurouni Kenshin. This is an adaptation of another one of his manga, Nobuhiro Watsuki. More of a modern day story with kind of magical artifacts called Kakugane. The show itself is Buso Renkin, and the open for that show is Maka Nachikai. Really awesome song.
And, of course, people will recognize Yoshiki Fukuyama as a member of Jam Project, and not surprisingly, as all the other members of Jam Project, when they decide to go out and do something on a solo basis, it's awesome, too, just like the Jam Project stuff, and this is no exception.
It still feels like Jam Project, though, I mean, ultimately, and that was kind of my thought hearing it both for the first time and even when I go back and replay it now. Is it sounds like it should be the open for some sort of super robot show, only it's a shonen fighting show instead. But yeah, just it's definitely a different thing from Kenshin. But as far as just straight up modern shonen, I thought it was a really enjoyable show, and just the open really gets you into it.
Yeah, no question about that. So we're going to check that out. The Buso Rankin Open, Makanachikai from Yoshiki Fukuyama here on Anime Thursdays.
あまりにも大きな力の壁世界の闇絶対負けるもんか限界超えて今はわからないことばかりだけど信じるこの道を進むだけさどんな敵でも味方でも構わないこの手を離すもんか真っ赤なシャイいつまでもいつまでも追い続けるんだどこまでもどこまでも明日への行方はどこまでもどこまでも燃えたぎるハートを燃えろ
Well, if that one makes it through all the DMCA notices, we'll see how that goes. But that's a really good one. It's funny you mentioned giant robot shows. This was probably about the same time Jam Project was doing a bunch of songs for Super Robot Wars.
Yeah.
Feels like this could have been just another one in that series. Chris, any thoughts on that one from Buso Rankin?
Yeah, I was actually happy to have one on your list. I almost forgot about this show, but as soon as you put it on your list and I checked it out, I was like, yeah, I remember seeing this on a shelf in your room once, looked it up, and eventually found it on Hulu, and I watched a good bit of it. So yeah, it kind of a blast from the past right there. Really enjoyable.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So that's the first three picks from Mike. We're going to move on to Chris now. Chris, you've got 5 picks as well. We're going to start with your first 3. What do you have for us first?
Yeah, I've got a decent mix of some kind of 90s, early 2000s, and even more recent shows. The first one I want to start off with is from Attack on Titan's final season, their first opening there, and that's My War, composed by Noko and performed by Shinsei Kamatichin. This one, I put it first just because I've talked about it before, but also because I feel like it's hard to convey how powerful it is to folks who haven't really watched the show and haven't been there kind of all the way up to the final season. But this song was perfect for me. The jump that the story kind of took, this kind of time leap that they did. You can tell the characters have grown, aged, and even evolved. I mean, you start to wonder if the protagonist is even really a protagonist anymore or more of a villain kind of. So it really accentuated the character development across the series as a whole and kind of just pulled at all the right emotions within me. So hopefully this will get more folks to check it out and watch all the series that follow or preceded this.
So we'll mute the podcast audio so that I can we'll jump in about 35, 40 seconds into this, Chris. Does that work? I don't think you had a note on this one, but
Yeah, that's fine.
okay. So we're going to check this one out from Attack on Titan's final season, the song My War. It definitely has a very intense sound to it. It feels like war. I mean, I know I get to watch the video, Mike, just getting to listen to it, but you definitely get that vibe of their soldiers marching into battle when you listen to that song. So
Yeah, not just soldiers either, but the whole visuals. If anybody goes out and watches the video of just children marching into battle and it jumping from a classroom to a battlefield, it's very great visuals, very great plot tied to it. It's just an all around great song.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely check that one out. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like a lot of times the first two opens from the show, just in general, are the ones that you see on a lot of lists that are people's top anime opens. I've always preferred this one. I think as a song, it's cooler. But I mean, all the Attack on Titan themes bring it and kind of show the enormity of the show. So there's no reason why this wouldn't either.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely check that one out. The first open to the final season of Attack on Titan, My War. Chris, what do you have for your next pick?
Yeah, moving on to my second pick, I'm going with, just like Mike, I wanted to show ending themes a little bit of love as well, so I included one on my list of 5 too. So I'm going to be jumping to Death Note and its second ending, Zetsubo Billy by Maximum the Hormone. This was the first time where I realized that metal anime music both existed and could be crazy catchy. I mean, Maximum the Hormone might be the anime band that I've dug the most into their backlog, and it's been a fun ride. I mean, they wound up doing music for my favorite character, Frieza. They're still making metal music today. I believe they made some Chainsaw Man music, but just really heavy music that was perfect for Death Note. Still to this day, one of my introductory anime that I'm happy to show people and just really draw people into just anime as a whole. So combine that with some amazing metal music and you've got kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah, this is definitely going to have a different sound than a lot of the stuff we're going to listen to this week, but it's a really good open. As we pause the podcast to bring you Zetsubo Billy, the second ending from Death Note here on Anime Thursdays.
Wanna ask how much badge? I can't sound so many. I guess that's what only I do not get low. Only want to come on it on so that the yak. Also the most of you that I got time my neck. Someone get your side, don't got the door. Don't let them go, don't stop, not the one more. Outside the road. Outside the road. And that's my side, and that's my left. Come for it, yeah. That's what I'm about in a little league. I'm talking about it, either left, either late. That's what I'm about in a little league. I'm talking about it, either left, either late. Talking about it, either left, either late.
Yeah, it's a good old metal song right there, Zetsubo Billy from Death Note. Mike, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I love this ending. Probably my favorite song just overall from Death Note. I prefer this so much more than the open they do for the show. It's heavy, but still has that really cool like melodic chorus to it. Great song.
Yeah, it's definitely one of
Yeah,
my
to your
favorites.
point, I mean, when I look up the listings on like Apple Music, their opening has it's their top song, but like you said, I prefer this one so much more. It's got that perfect mix of clean and growly vocals, just all around great. And I think I feel like I've heard this on a Sirius XM radio channel at one point when they let some guest hosts on. I remember finding this on there, and I was glad to finally see some appreciation for just anime metal kind of in a more mainstream area.
Yeah, anytime this stuff ends up on satellite radio, it's done pretty well. So.
Seems like something Matt Heafy from Trivium would pick as like a guest DJ. Like it just seems like his thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, there's pretty much the only time you get any variety on satellite radios when one of the guest DJs show up, whether it's Chris Jericho or Eddie Trunk or whoever it might be. That's about the only time that they play something that's not on their playlist. But definitely a good one for your second choice. What do you have for your final choice before the break, at least?
Yep, final choice before the break, kicking it a little old school, but one that I didn't really watch until recently, and that is the first opening for Yu Yu Hakusho. I went with the English version, Smile Bomb, sung by Sarah White, but honestly, this is one of those few instances I feel like where the Japanese and the English are just side by side amazing songs in their own rights. I will be interested to hear kind of Mike's input and even your input from watching it closer to when it released and how you feel kind of about the English version of the song.
Well, we'll first get a chance to listen to the song, and then we will give our thoughts on that, because certainly Mike and I both have some opinions on that. Let's check out the English version of the first Yu Yu Hakusho open, Smile Bomb.
In a crowd, in a faceless town, I need to feel the touch of a friend. In the countryside, I wander far and wide. The isolation gets me again. I don't know where to go when I feel like crying. Oh my, it's time to open myself to something new. I wanna stop and grow up again. Then suddenly, my power and confidence start swelling up, magically erupt. And it's all because of kindness that I feel from people I don't even know. Then suddenly, my intuition and my wisdom grow. And then I know that most of all I sense compassion's real. Thanks to strangers wherever I go. Thank you for waking me up.
Yeah, that's a classic right there. Even whether it's English or Japanese, I think first off, it's funny because I had considered at some point picking the English open to Dragon Ball, which was also really well done and basically sits side by side with the original Japanese version. But this was an era that there were a lot of really good English dubbed opens. There were some bad ones too, and maybe we'll take an episode and talk about some of those. But this is certainly the ones they did for Yu Yu Hakusho. They really did a great job on.
Yeah, it's funny. I know I come off as kind of harsh on English adaptations or versions of opens, but the ones that are good are just great. And I can only assume I feel about this song the way people younger than me feel about like the American version of like the Yu-Gi-Oh open, where it hits you at a certain level because it was so important to like your formative years as a fan. To me, this is my Adult Swim block from the early 2000s. Like, I love this version of the song.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Chris, any other thoughts on that? Because honestly, like you said, I think this is as good as the Japanese version, which I know can ruffle some feathers when you say something like that. But
it just goes back to, like I said, that kind of old school, just super catchy, poppy sound. I feel like I've got two modes. It's either I want to hear that in my OPs, or I want to hear something more like Maximum the Hormone, just one side of the scale or the other, and just no in between sometimes.
yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I think there's enough artists that do both well that it's the one thing about anime music. There's a wide variety, and I think we're going to continue through that when we get into my picks. So we'll do 3 of my songs now before we go to the break for our podcast listeners. And we're going to start off, basically I've decided, and I got a little help from Mike on this, because I was going to go 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s, but as Mike suggested, at some point picking songs from the 80s could become a bit thin. So what I've done instead is gone with 2 slots that are basically pre-2000s, anything before the 2000s, then a 2000s, 2010, and 2020 slot. Turns out that the first pick from the pre-2000s is from the 80s. We're going to go back to 1987 for the 10th single from TM Network. It is the song Get Wild, which was the first ending of City Hunter. The song is obviously very much in the news right now because City Hunter is having a Netflix movie adaptation, which from all the trailers looks like it'd be really, really good. So I definitely want to check that out. This theme sold 231,000 copies. It was their biggest hit up to that point. It was really the breakthrough song for TM Network. It was the group's first single to enter the top 10 of the Oricon chart. They know it's been a hit, and they know it's been a hit because the band has remixed and released 9 versions of this song, including Get Wild Continual, which just came out on April the 21st as part of the band's 40-plus Thanks to City Hunter limited box, which, again, as we mentioned, is one of the themes for the new City Hunter movie. But it's one of those songs that absolutely puts you in a place and time, and going to get a chance to listen to a little bit of it now. This is Get Wild. This is actually the 2023 remaster because I couldn't find the original, but we'll get a chance to listen to this from TM Network from the show City Hunter.
Get wild and down 一人では解けない愛のパズルを抱いて Get wild and down この街で優しさに甘えていたくはない Get chance and love 君だけが守れるものがどこかにあるさ Get chance and love 一人でも傷ついた夢を取り戻すよ
Yeah, this takes you back to a time when City Pop was huge, but it's still a classic to this day. Obviously, it continues to get re-released. Mike, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, TM Network is great. A lot of the music from City Hunter is amazing. Yeah, I do think there are a limited number of entries for the 80s that you could select, but you could probably hit any of the 80s City Hunter stuff and you would be fine. Yeah, TM Network was huge. What more can you say about them? Great open.
Yeah, and we've talked about other bands that have had either influenced or certainly were tangentially related to TM Networks. So it's great to see them continuing on and doing well all these years later. Chris, any thoughts on Get Wild by TM Network?
Yes, City Hunter is definitely one I want to get into. I hope that I don't necessarily expect them to bring back all the same musical tones in the new series that they're coming out with, but I do hope they at least do it justice with something similar. As far as the tone, I will say I always thought that City Hunter, at least what I had seen, seemed like it had some darker tones to it. So it's interesting to see something so lighthearted kind of opening the show.
Yeah, there are definitely some darker elements to City Hunter. So certainly this kind of contrasts that. But again, being the first ending theme, maybe a little bit of a different pace. But definitely check that one out. Get Wild from TM Network. My second pick, it's kind of a shame that I'm not able at the moment to pull the video of this open up because honestly, the video kind of makes this open. It is, we're into the 90s now. We are going to February 5th, 1993. The song is Just Think of Tomorrow by Mari Sasaki. It is the first opening theme to the Irresponsible Captain Tyler. This is probably one of the first opening videos that I saw that had both shots from the anime and some sort of live video of Sasaki singing the song. If you haven't seen the video, you should go check it out. It's classic. But Sasaki, didn't have a ton of hits on her own, but she did play keyboard and sung backing vocals for well-known acts such as Minami Kuribayashi, L'Arc-en-Ciel, the Gospelers, among others. Like I said, got to check out the video. The song is great as well, but the video is really kind of next here. So we're going to check out Mari Sasaki's Just Think of Tomorrow from the Irresponsible Captain Tyler.
今すぐ Celebrate the future 見知らぬ何かが待ってるさこだわりみんな捨てたら Come together just think of tomorrow つまずき恐れず行こうよ時間を超えて進もう Come together just think of tomorrow Alright
I had to leave in that little synth part there at the end that I was totally not expecting there. But this is a song that to me also kind of feels like an 80s song because when I first thought about including this, I really thought this was from the 80s, but it was from 1993. But certainly a very memorable sound and an even more memorable video. Mike, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you're not kidding about it's something you have to go and watch for yourself. Just the visual effects when they show her singing like in the studio, it does feel very late 80s. It's just probably better than the show is. I've not watched more than maybe like an episode or two of it, but it's hard to imagine the show living up to that theme.
And it's one of the early dub roles from Crispin Freeman, who was Captain Tyler. So
Just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's certainly worth checking out at some point. Chris, any thoughts on Just Think of Tomorrow by Mari Sasaki.
I'm glad I wasn't alone. I had to look it up just to make sure that this wasn't from the 80s. Like, I mean, I guess it wasn't too far into the 90s for Irresponsible Captain Tyler, but yeah, it sounds like something straight out of, like, I could have seen that paired up with like Kaniku Man from the 80s is what it reminded me of, the opening for that. But yeah, it definitely sounds older than it is, but in a good way. It's got that classic sound to it.
Yeah, definitely. And you have to see the video. If you've not seen the opening video to the show, definitely check that out. One more song before we head to the break on the podcast version of this show. And I had to pick this one just because it's fitting. Of course, a couple weeks ago, we were fortunate enough to be in a situation where we got a chance to see the Northern Lights, which is very unusual in Ohio, or even parts unknown, I'm sure. But it was really cool to get a chance to see that. So very fittingly, I picked one of my favorite Megumi Hayashibara songs from 2002. It is Northern Lights, the second opening theme for Shaman King. Maybe my favorite song of hers. It's very close. She has a lot of songs from this era that I really love. This was released on March 27, 2002. It peaked at number 3 on the Oricon Weekly Chart, which is the highest peak of any of her songs across her catalog. The B-side was Omokage, which is the second ending of Shaman King. That's a really great song, too. Definitely a slower song. But the visuals, this is one of those opens that the song is amazing. The way they incorporate it into the visuals is amazing. It's just a really outstanding open. So we're going to get ready to check some of that out. We're going to check out Northern Lights from Megumi Hayashibara.
愛も罪も夢も闇も今すべて身にまとって君の力僕の心重なり合った瞬間何が生まれる Do you believe it in destiny?
And there are some great driving guitars in that song. It's got a little bit of everything. And again, at this point, she really couldn't do any wrong as far as an opening or an ending song. And this one's one of her best. Mike, your thoughts on this one?
You know, it's funny, earlier we were talking about Yu Yu Hakusho and Smile Bomb being such a great English rendition of the original open. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear that Northern Lights over here. We got whatever the 4 Kids, I believe, Shaman King open was, which was not one of the better ones. I mean, all of her work just screams like shonen open theme. All of her songs are amazing for that. It's kind of a shame that I feel like that first run of Shaman King didn't really hit over here very well. I mean, it could have been partially due to who was airing it. Good to see it's come back, but you can't do any better than this song for that show.
Yeah, and the first open's really good too. She did that as well, but this is, to me, on a different level. Chris, your thoughts on Northern Lights?
Yeah, I mean, you love a song that makes you want to watch the show with no context, and that's kind of how it felt for me. And just also as an aside, I need to make just a playlist of all this music because I don't have the kiddos up here with me right now, but when I'm watching, Naruto or anything late at night, they love dancing along to anime music, and I'm not really sure why, but I think they would love it.
Yeah, definitely. I think they would definitely get a kick out of that, and some of this stuff's really danceable, and that's probably one of them. But you're listening to our live version of our podcast on Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. If you're watching on Twitch and you're watching on YouTube, we're going to roll along. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, we're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, each of us will give you our final 2 picks each to wrap up this edition of Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. We'll be back to do that on the other side of this timeout here on the Nerdcast Empire. Back on the Nerdcast Empire, if you're listening on the podcast, welcome back. We are talking anime music this week on the Nerdcast Empire, as each of us gives you 5 of our favorite anime songs to check out. And of course, if you're listening on the podcast version, you're not getting to hear those songs. But if you're listening on Twitch, if you're listening on YouTube, hopefully, and they're not muted, you'll get a chance to hear clips of those songs. Otherwise, you can check them out. Most of these are available on YouTube, so give them a listen. Don't forget to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. We do have a store there. It's got some pretty cool stuff. Check that out. We really appreciate everybody who's bought stuff from us in the past. the plan, all things goes well, we'll be back again on Sunday night for another episode of what was Music Mondays, but it'll probably be just Music Weekly now, as we're going to be talking about the music of May the 3rd this
Yes.
week? May the 3rd. So,
May the third be with you.
so hopefully May the 3rd brings better music than puns when we get to our music on Sunday, although I'm not necessarily optimistic based on your comments in Discord this week. So we'll get a chance to check those out.
There's enough good stuff this week.
We always try to find a few good things. But check us out. If all goes well, we don't have any fires. We'll be back on the air at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And, of course, you can catch the VOD as well later on. So let's get to the final two each. We're going to throw it to Chris next for his final two picks. So, Chris, what do you have for your final two picks this week?
Yeah, the first of my final two picks, I kind of mentioned this band recently, how I had wished I had been able to jump on that first kind of anime OPED episode with you guys, because I would have mentioned this band immediately, and that is Myth and Roid. And for them, I'm choosing their song Veracity, which was the OP for the third season of Overlord. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, isekai. And this band, this duo, is just, it's interesting because they got their hit, their first single, LLL, which was shown in Overlord. And since then, they have been featured in a lot of anime and mainly isekai. They've done music for, as I mentioned, Overlord, Isekai Quartet, Saga of Tanya the Evil, and even some of those light novel shows like Cautious Hero. Hero is overpowered but overly cautious. So they seem to have found their niche not only in making anime music, but isekai music. To me, they had, like I mentioned, they had songs on Overlord before, but season 3 and this opening was what really drew me into looking more into their back catalog. It's just got heavy rocking female vocals, just a sinister laugh at one point in the song, and then where I want to start the song and that I listed, it kind of tones it down and really lures you in with this kind of soft, melodic soprano vocals. So it's got a lot to offer in one short OP. So hopefully everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, we're going to check that out now. Veracity from Myth and Roid, who's great in pretty much everything they do. So we will check that out. This is Veracity.
Don't stop feeding, don't stop, one more bite.足りない、飽きない、現在の衝動よ。I am very, very crazy, very into my life. 横に食われたバージョン no go out and go. Very, very tasty, very sad. 最にのだよ。世界のすべてこのカクルの中。
As we jump back out of that and jump back into our podcast, and just, again, Myth and Roid's great in pretty much everything they do. Mike, your thoughts on Veracity?
Yeah, really enjoy this open. I'm more familiar with their work from ReZero, where they do the second open and the first ending. It is kind of interesting that they do stuff for Overlord, Tanya the Evil, ReZero, and Isekai Quartet, all kind of being, related shows by Isekai Quartet. But yeah, everything they do is great.
Yeah, and this is, again, a song that's got lots of different ebbs and flows, which I always enjoy. It's not just one beat all the way through. You heard the lighter stuff, then it kicked into the heavier chorus, and just, again, they're really good. This is really good. Overlord's got really good music, so definitely check this one out. Chris, you're on to your final pick of this week. What do you got for us?
All right, on to the final pick. As I mentioned, I may or may not have some Gundam in here. Maybe I should just start alluding to that and then not have it, but this week I do. I've only ever watched 2 Gundam series so far. I really need to dig into more, but Gundam Seed was the first one I ever dug into, and then Mike was gracious enough to show me Gundam Wing, which has some of the best Gundam designs, I think, even without watching some of the others. Just the Death Scythe Gundam and some of the others just blew me away. But this is Just Communication, the first OP for Gundam Wing. Debut single, as Mike mentioned earlier, by the J-pop duo 2 Mix. And this is another one that really works great with the opening video. As soon as he showed it to me, I wanted to watch it on repeat because it's got this kind of, I don't know how to describe the sound, kind of a scraping noise that repeats, and then it pairs well with their jump cuts from the opening characters' faces to the joysticks controlling the Gundams. And yeah, just all around great opening, and especially a great opening to the opening.
Well, since you mentioned the opening to the opening, I feel like that's probably where we should start. So we will check out Just Communication from 2Mix, the first open to Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. Probably should dump out of that there before we get back to the chorus, because I think playing a minute and a half of that might be excessive. But this is one of the all-time great songs. Gundam Wing has great music. Probably the greatest scene in Gundam history took place in this show that Crunchyroll always posts on their social media. I can't remember the exact context of it, but it's... when he talks about killing her at her birthday party, or she invites him to the birthday party or something. I can't remember how it goes, but it's one of the all-time greats. Gundam Wing is one of those foundational shows for me as far as getting into being a Gundam fan, I think. And the music, again, I think just adds to it. And the ending theme to Gundam Wing, the first one, it's Just Love, like totally, 180 from the open, but yet really awesome as well. So definitely check that out as well. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I love all the music from Gundam Wing, of course. It's funny how Gundam is able to take what are generally like unlikable characters and still have good shows with them, but so many of the protagonists, and even like in this case, Relina, like they weren't the most likable, charming individuals. Usually it's the villains that you end up liking more, but it works for them. I also think it's interesting how, for some reason, really danceable like techno music works so well with giant robot battles. I think it's really the most disappointing part about the Blu-ray release of Zeta Gundam was that they took out the poppy opens and replaced it with like this epic wartime orchestral theme. It's like, yeah, I get it. In one sense, that's probably more fitting for what's going on in the show, but it's just not Gundam.
No, not at all. And it carries into Gundam Seed, because we jump right in with groups like Nami Tamaki, who just
TM Revolution.
It carries the same theme over. So, but it kind of started here with Gundam Wing. So, really great choices this week, Chris, for your music picks. We're going to move on to Mike's last two picks this week. Mike, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so kind of jumping around, I wanted to grab something from the roaring 20 teens. This is a song and open that actually made me want to watch and ultimately watch the show. It's featured on so many all-time top anime opening lists, and justifiably so. It's a tremendous song, great open. Kind of the use of limited colors during the opening sequence is a really cool stylistic approach that they took there. But the song from the second part of Noragami Arigato, is Kyoran Hey Kids from the Oral Cigarettes.
Yeah, this is a really, really good one. We're going to check this one out now from Noragami Arigato, Kyoran Hey Kids, the Oral Cigarettes, right here on Anime Thursdays.
So solo flavor, just wanna hold your hand. Just wanna hold your hand. Just wanna hold your hand. 狂って平気次第に時代は変わって終わらない焦燥
Yeah, that show just has great music, but that is is really, really outstanding from that show. Cure on Hey Kids. Chris, any thoughts on that one?
That took me for a wild ride. That's one I'm gonna have to dig into their stuff some more because that I purposefully waited. I didn't want to listen to your guys' music until here, just so it would hit me and I could be surprised. And yeah, I'm glad I did because that one was wild.
Yeah, that's a great one. Again, it's a show that has a ton of great music,
Yeah.
and but the Oral Cigarettes, just separate from just the show, they've got a lot of great music as well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely want to check that out. Again, Cure on Hey Kids from Noragami. Mike, your final pick for this week's Anime Thursdays.
So yeah, with both my second and number one choices this week, it's kind of clearing out some of the really heavy hitters as far as anime opens go. Things that if I were to make a top 50 would definitely be near the top of the list. This song in question first started airing with the show in 2020 as the 10th open. Kind of interesting, the show in question, I feel like kind of had a rocky start out of the gates, like wasn't super popular, but I can't help but think just the music had some impact on it gaining popularity because it's got some absolutely amazing opens and endings. The show in question is Black Clover, and I'm picking the 10th open, Black Catcher from Vicky Blanca.
Yeah, this is a great song. It's again, I think you're right. I think there's something to be said for this show. Kind of hung in there, and the music was kind of driving it, and they kept getting bigger. I mean, Vicky Blanca also did the third open, and this song kind of feels like a slightly evolved form of the third open. And like, okay, now show's taking it to a different level. We're going to take this open and everything that went with it to a different level as well.
And kind of interesting that I feel like his opens both corresponded to really cool arcs in the show. Black Rover it was the third open, happened during the Eye of the Midnight Sun arc, which was kind of one of the first points in the show where you're like, okay, maybe this show's really going to go somewhere. And then obviously this one took place like right as the climax of the Elf Resurrection arc happened, then leading into what was kind of a filler arc, but then introducing the Spade Kingdom, which is kind of the next big bad that we'll be seeing in the future. Well, we have seen some already, but we will be when the new stuff comes out from here. But yeah, just really awesome song and open.
And Vicky Blanca already working on a new open for that new stuff as well. So super excited to hear what he's got next. But for those who maybe have lived under a rock and haven't heard this one, it's on about every countdown list you can watch, and for good reason, because it is one of the top modern opens. This is Black Catcher, the 10th open from Black Clover from Vicky Blanca. It should be noted, Vicky Blanca is the one playing piano on that. He's an incredibly talented pianist. Yeah. So in addition to obviously singing an amazing song, he's also incredible on the piano, and some of his other non-anime stuff really kind of showcases some of that piano playing. But he's definitely one of those guys I want to see in concert at some point. I know he came, I think, in the wintertime and went through some cities nearby, but not really close enough to drive during the winter. So I'm hoping maybe a summer tour we'll get a chance to see Vicky Blanca in concert. Chris, your thoughts on Black Catcher?
Yeah, it's strong. It's catchy. I mean, there's multiple versions of this out there that I found that are just as equally as great. And like you mentioned, I think it benefits in being strong on its own, but also opening up to arguably the climax of like not only a huge arc for Black Clover, but just an anime in general. So to give it that leg up on maybe some of the other openings that were kind of in the running from Black Clover as well, I see why this one comes out on top.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great opens. That's a show that has a lot of great music and endings as well. So definitely check out the music from Black Clover, but that one specifically, Black Catcher from Vicky Blanca, the 10th Open. So we're on to my final two picks, and we're going to continue on through the decades. We are up to the 2010s, and we are going to get to one of my favorite shows that I still need to actually finish because it kind of came out in pieces, and I kind of got away from it. But it's from the franchise, A Certain Scientific Railgun, which, of course, is a spinoff of A Certain Magical Index. This is the 7th single from the then duo, now trio, but at the time only two-person band, Fripside, with the song Sister's Noise. Of course, at this time, Fripside was Yoshino Nanjo and Satoshi Yaginuma. Nanjo has since moved on from Fripside. Fripside, I did confirm that the name does come from the English word flip side, obviously the backside of a record, but the Japanese going with Fripside instead. Released May 8th, 2013, it was the first Fripside single to reach number 1 on the Oricon charts. Was the first opening theme of A Certain Scientific Railgun S, which was the sequel to the original series. This is an artist, a group that played a lot of the music from Railgun, and it kind of gives it all just a very similar feeling, but this is a really good one and kind of sets up the sister's arc where she's got to deal with all these clones. Not to get too deep into it, but certainly a very important arc of the Railgun series. So we are going to check out Sister's Noise from Fripside, the first opening to A Certain Scientific Railgun S.
自分らしく生きること何よりも伝えたくて生まれ続ける悲しみの痛みその意味を刻んだらシスターズボイスが届けるよ涙さえ力にしてつながり合う強さだけが全てを打ち抜いていく
And of course, I forgot to mute the podcast there, but I've done pretty well with that so far for this episode. But this was a group that really didn't have a whole lot of singles until they brought Nanjo in right before the first season of A Certain Scientific Railgun. They did the first open for that, and really kind of took off from that point on. And of course, Nanjo's done a lot of great stuff solo wise, and of course was in the original Love Live, was kind of the anchor to that first group, but. Mike, your thoughts on Sister's Noise from Fripside?
Yeah, it's amazing how well they can take just techno-sounding music and make it rock somehow, and that's what happens here with Fripside. I think Nanjo just had a song not that long ago on a show, maybe from Winter, that was really a really cool song. But yeah, I talk about music that makes you want to watch the show. This definitely does that.
Yeah, I think definitely the case that I got into the music from Railgun before I got into the show, and it's certainly a really great show. Chris, your thoughts on Fripside?
Yeah, it's just fun seeing the dichotomy between, we talk about songs sounding like they came from, the 80s pop scene, and you can definitely see the evolution as far as how far anime's come, where you still have that kind of basic backbone, but as you mentioned, you add in those techno beats and make it sound cool, and it's just great seeing the evolution from decades over.
Yeah, just a really solid opening from Fripside. Again, one of their biggest songs with Sister's Noise. So we're going to head to the 2020s now, and I talk a lot about Bocchi the Rocks. I figured it was one good chance to sneak in a Bocchi the Rock song here. This is an insert song from the 12th episode of Bocchi the Rock. The Japanese version of the name of the song is Seiza ni Naritara, or If I Could Become a Constellation, from Kesoku Band. It's sung by Kumi Hasegawa, who sings a lot of their music, or most of their music, as Kite Ikuyo. The album peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Japan Hot Albums chart and the Oricon Albums chart, was certified gold. This single was released on Christmas Day back in 2022. They became the first female group to take first place in the digital album ranking, announced on December the 20th, 2023. They had 70,132 downloads. Obviously, Bocchi the Rock has become a huge hit. There's another season of it coming somewhere down the road, and more music from this foursome, and just was an outstanding show. That was a lot of fun. That produced a lot of great music. And this one it kind of comes at a very peak moment of the series. they run into a little onstage adversity. If you've watched the show, you know. But Bocchi's able to kind of work her way out of that adversity during this particular song. So we're going to check out If I Could Become a Constellation from the band, Kesoku Band. And I will try to remember to mute it this time before we start playing this. So let's check this out.
君と集まって星座になれたら星降る夜一瞬の願い事きらめいて揺らめいて震えてるしくなる君と集まって星座になれたら空見上げて指をさされるような繋いだ線ほどかないで僕がどんなに眩しくても
The thing I like about the Kesoku Band stuff is it all sounds like music that was played by a band. It doesn't just sound like something they came up with for the anime. Like, you can hear the guitar, you can hear the bass, you can hear the drums, and obviously Ikumi Hasegawa's vocals really just kind of take it over the top. But just a really fun song from was a really fun show. Mike, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, what I love about this show, and the song is great too, is just how anytime you have a big music show like that in Japan, there's always like the flood of similar, like the model guitar that the main character is playing. Like in this case, the Gibson Les Paul, like they end up selling all over the place, even more than they would normally, because these aspiring guitarists, because of Bocchi the Rock, want to play what she plays. I always think that's really cool. And kind of to your point, it's reminiscent to me of like Beck, Mongolian Chop Squad, where you had the music in the show felt like the music being played by high schoolers forming a band. Like there was a certain authenticity to it, which was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is that it feels authentic. And I think even the story, and that's one thing, as I've kind of told everybody who hasn't seen it, that it feels like a story from people trying to start a band. I mean, I know there were some complaints about Bocchi kind of being, introverted to almost a fault, but it also felt kind of authentic as someone who was kind of that way in high school as well. Like, I kind of got where she was coming from, and it really did kind of hit home. But it's a great show, great music. I'm sure I will be spotlighting more of their music as we continue through when we do this about once a month. Chris, your final thoughts on Kesoku Band's Seiza ni Naretara?
Just kudos to you. I mean, we've talked about Bocchi the Rock so much, so I know how hard it would have been to pin down one song to put into a list. I'm sure we'll get more over the next coming weeks, but props to you for being able to narrow it down and pick one out of that entire group of songs.
Like I said, this one does have a special place in the show, and there is a video online that once you've seen the episode, you can go back and watch, where I assume one of the music directors from the show plays the song and, self-commits the same thing that happens in the show and then has to try to work his way around it. So, and it's obviously sounded really good also. So that is our music picks for this week. Chris, any final thoughts on this week's Anime Thursdays live on Twitch?
Yeah, this was fun to be a part of. I'm glad I've seen plenty of people in here listening to us, so hopefully they enjoyed it. And I might have to work on getting a playlist similar to one that I made for Music Monday or Music Weekly, and just see if I can find all of our top picks on Spotify or somewhere and make a playlist of it.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. I think it'd be great to get a chance to relive all this as we continue to make more picks each and every month. Mike, your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's always fun kind of going back to see what I've seen over the years and the music that's resonated with me enough to mention. But yeah, enjoying the live Twitch atmosphere. Can't wait to continue this experiment moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely a different feeling trying to do these podcasts live and trying to mix it while being able to kind of keep everything going, trying to basically be the sound engineer and the chat engineer and everything else. So it's been an experience for me as well, but I think it's gone pretty well so far, and we're going to continue to do these live as we can. We may occasionally have recorded ones from time to time if it makes sense, but for the most part, we're we're going to try to do it live as much as possible. We hope you will join us each and every week. But that will wrap things up for Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. Huge thanks to the guys, as always, for joining me. Huge thanks to Stove Lake Media. Hope Nate's enjoying France and his summer over there. Bonjour, Nate, if you're checking this out. It may be in the early morning hours on Friday after you wake up. You're probably in bed as we record this now. But big thanks to Nate and everyone at Stove Lake Media for their continued support. We'll be back on Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to do another episode of what was Music Mondays, but now kind of feels like
Music Live.
Music Live. And we're going to bring you the music from May the 3rd, so definitely want to check that out. That's going to wrap things up for this week. For the entire crew, I'm Matt saying so long. Don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.